Hello everybody, MinishCap1 here. Today I will be discussing Singe's minion execution poison trail update from patch 13.6 and whether or not I think that Riot has hit their stated goals for that update. So, without further ado, let's begin. As you can see, currently Singe's win rate is not great. He is negative win rate Emerald plus, negative win rate Diamond plus, negative win rate Diamond 2 plus, and just barely Master plus. He is positive, but this is a Master plus is an extremely low sample size. So one or two wins would make this, or losses would make this negative. It's random chance at this point. But the bigger story is that Emerald, Diamond, and Diamond 2 plus are all negative win rate. And this is after a few patches of decline, and some of the reasons why this is happening is because Singed ate a lot of direct and indirect nerfs. Fling got nerfed, his health per level got nerfed, his armor per level got nerfed, his what else was it? Ult stats got nerfed, poison trail got nerfed and then reverted, passive got nerfed and then reverted. Leandry's got nerfed, Swifty's got nerfed, Dead Man's Plate got nerfed. There's so many things that got nerfed for Singe that has caused this to happen. So, what were Riot's stated goals for the Poison Trail update? This is a DM that I have with Froxon. He is the lead gameplay designer of League of Legends. And I asked him about this update back in March when it went on PBE. And he's the one who actually set up the interview that I had with Riot Step, who was the one who designed the update. So, Froxon says that the two goals for this update were Singed players feel less bad about interacting with waves, and two, Singed players feel less need to proxy in order to farm successfully. These were the things that Riot wanted to do with this update. So, goal number one, Singed players feel less bad about interacting with waves. Was this goal achieved, and did they maintain it? Initially, it was achieved in my opinion, but now, absolutely not. They did not maintain it. This goal is no longer achieved in my opinion, and let me tell you why. So, when you interact with a creep wave in the lane, what else is on that creep wave? It's almost never just a naked wave, unless you have tempo advantage over the opponent. The enemy champion is in that wave, right? And so now, whenever you fight with Singed, not only is your armor lower, whenever you ult, your stats are lower. Whenever you fling, your damage is lower. It's only a 5% ratio nerf, especially in the early game. I know what you're saying, MinishCap. That should not mean a lot, but it does mean quite a bit of damage that you lose whenever in an all-in, in a fight, you are flinging someone 2, 3, 4 times. That absolutely does happen, and you do lose a lot of damage. The amount of times that people survive on 1 HP, now after all of these nerfs, is absolutely infuriating. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is that in addition to my all-in getting nerfed before my first time is completed, well, after my first time is completed, Leandry's for damage, my wave clear is lower and my all-in damage is lower again, even because I lost an additional 10 AP on Leandry. So not only did I lose 5 AP, armor, MR, mana regen, health regen, everything, movement speed on my ultimate, there's an additional 10 AP loss on Leandry, so a total of minus 15 AP loss for any all-in. That is a lot, especially for a damage over time champion like Singed. So that is a pretty big issue. I would actually say that it feels worse now to interact with waves, because when you interact with waves, you interact with enemy champion, and you lose every trade to every character. Not only do you lose short-term trades, you lose the more important type of fight for Singed, which is an all-in, because Singed has no sustain, right? So most fights turn into an all-in versus competent opponents, and you lose most of them. It really sucks. Even if you fight with a health advantage, a mana advantage, a stat advantage, an item advantage, all that stuff, you actually still lose many of these fights. It is really not great right now, in my opinion. So because your champion combat is just strictly worse now, your ability to interact with waves suffers because you lose the fights that happen on the waves. It's not great. So goal number one, I would say right now, is definitely a failure. Goal number two, Singed players feel less need to proxy in order to farm successfully. Singed players, I think, now actually feel more need to proxy because your champion fighting potential is worse. It is weaker than what it was before. So if you can't fight champions, you're going to not want to lane versus them, which was the explicit goal of this change, which sucks. And this is coming from me as a proxy Singed player. You have to understand, like, you don't proxy just to proxy endlessly. You have to proxy in order to actually gain a lead over your opponent and then be able to fight with priority, right? You're not just proxying, or at least you shouldn't be proxying until the game is over. You need to be able to find fights, fight the enemy jungler, fight the enemy top laner, fight with your jungler, fight with your mid laner, right? You have to be able to do, you have to be doing these things to actually make your proxy turn into advantage. And if you don't, at least you can try and get the tempo advantage. But what do you do with the tempo advantage whenever you recall? You have to fight your enemy top laner with your item advantage. But the thing is, right now, even if you do that, you lose those fights even with your item and or level advantage, because your all-in is just significantly weaker now, right? So definitely goal number 2, I think, was or is a failure at this point, unfortunately. So let's go into the specifics of what changed for Singed. First things first, I will say these stats right here on the analytics are from patch 15.6, when Singed was updated with the Poison Trail execution. You can see one of their desires was to have Singe's pick rate increase, which it did. It increased to 3.16%. The patch before that, these are Emerald Plus, he was 2%, and the patch before that, let's see, 1.94. So his stats definitely increased in terms of pick rate, which was good. However, if you go to patches after that, you can see his pick rate gradually decreases. It's 15.7, 2.64, 15.8, 2.68, 15.9, 2.4, 15.10, 2.1, 15.11, 1.8, 15.12, 1.8. We're on 15.12 right now. So he's down to 1% pick rate. And if you look at U.GG is actually at 1.7% pick rate. So I would say overall the pick rate increase pick rate decrease has ended up pretty bad for Singed as well. So the way that this champion has been directly and indirectly nerfed over and over since the minion execution update has caused people to drop playing him entirely. His pick rate now, by the way, let me show you. His pick rate now, by the way, is lower than what it was before the Poison Trail update. So here's 15.3, 1.9%. Here's 15.4, 1.94. Here's 15.5, 2%, right? His pick rate now is lower than what it was pre-update, which is just like mind-boggling because they wanted to make him more accessible to play. Singed used to be a champion where the higher elo you got, the higher his win rate went, because there is a lot of hidden skill curve to Singed. However, now Singed win rate actually decreases the higher elo you get. His win rate's not even that insane in lower elo. I think in bronze he's like 51%. Like, come on, right? But whenever the higher and higher you go, his win rate actually drops off, which used to not be the case. It's really unfortunate. But let's go patch by patch as to what changed with Singed to make him feel much worse to play. So we can actually go all the way back to the start of season 14, the start of January 2024, when Singed was hotfix nerfed after getting new items in the new item system, which is the old item system but with more uniques. After 3 years of having terrible items from the Mythic era, Singed finally got Leandry's back in season 14, and he was hotfix nerfed on the second day of season 14 from this was a 90% AP ratio right here down to an 80%, and then they buffed him back up to an 85% 10 patches later. 10 patches later. They buffed him back up to an 80%. Or sorry, 85%. Okay, cool. Thanks, Riot. I appreciate it. The cooldown of his ultimate also was reduced to 100 seconds at all ranks. This is the nerf I think they should have, or the buff they should have reverted to Singed's ultimate instead of the stats. The stats should not have been decreased. The cooldown should have been increased, because the stats are very important when you actually have your ult for your ultimate to matter. This should have been reverted if they wanted to nerf the ultimate, which at this point I don't think they even should have, because the win rate is in the gutter in my opinion. 14.20 armor was reduced by 0.5 per level, which I think this was, if I recall correctly, across all champions. I think like many champions got armor nerfs here. I guess not. I forget what happened here. Oh, this was, so 14.20 was whenever they nerfed all of the items in the game, and because there was lower damage in the game due to that, Singed win rate went up again, so they nerfed his armor per level. But this adds up really fast when you consider the ultimate nerf as well. It makes Singed feel a lot squishier. All right, so back to the Season 15 changes with the Poison Trail. Poison Trail now gives minion kill credit. In compensation for this, on the patch, they nerfed Singe's health per level. They also buffed his attack speed. Okay, what they could have done for all of this, by the way, if they wanted to hit Fruxon's stated goals, if they wanted to hit these goals, all they could have done was just buff the attack speed, and that's literally it. And that would have hit these goals, in my opinion, because that would help your trading, that would help your pushing, that would help your tower pushing, it would help everything. Because Singe attack speed was actually pretty abysmal, and it still is not great, but at least he's better now than he was before. This attack speed buff was honestly all that he needed. However, they went through with the minion execution update, which honestly at the time I would say I was pretty positive on, but the problem is, I think that Riot has not maintained Singed with updates the way that they needed to, and so it ends up feeling like punishment rather than a benefit to playing the champion with this update. It should feel like a benefit, right? That you can get more CS, but it ends up just hurting and feeling terrible instead. So I think if Riot actually maintained this update, it would have been a lot better. That being said, this was a patch where they finally updated the Poison Trail. They hotfix nerfed him the very next day. Then the very next patch, they reverted the Poison Trail nerf that they hotfixed into him. And then they instead nerfed ultimate stats, and they reverted the passive nerf. Or sorry, they gave him a passive nerf, and then they reverted that in the patch after that as well. So the ultimate stats nerf, you go at the level 6 ultimate, which you're now at 25 stats. It feels really bad. You are noticeably slower. Your all-in is noticeably weaker. You are noticeably more squishy. You run out of mana constantly when you're fighting, because you might not think that 5 flat mana regen is a lot, but it really does add up, again, for a damage over time champion where your poison is draining mana every second. You really notice that -5 mana regen. You go constantly now. It does not feel great. And now that they bug fixed Nimbus Cloak to work with teleport and all summoners again properly, I would much rather have Nimbus Cloak than to go mana flow banned, because the utility of that rune is very good for Singe, especially in the late game when the mana nerf does not matter as much, even though you can still go late game, which does suck. But to be forced to go mana flow banned on Singed would honestly just feel terrible. So I really hope that at some point this nerf gets reverted, because this feels really bad. You notice it a bit less starting at level 11 ult than level 16 ult, but you do absolutely still notice it. But it's most noticeable definitely at level 6 when Singed is at his weakest out of his 3 ultimate levels, in my opinion, because you're just very easily abusable. For reference, I'm pretty sure that Jax and Garen get more stats from Jax ult and Garen W than this. And I think, I'm so curious about this. I'll come back to this page, but I want to see how much stats Nasus gets from his level 6 ultimate, because he gets stats now. Yeah. Now Nasus doesn't get armor, or sorry, movement speed, mana regen, health regen, stuff like that, ability power, AD, but he does get straight up more armor MR from his level 6 ultimate than Singe does by quite a bit. He gets 15 more at level 6, which is just like, what the fuck? Like, that's okay, sure. That's actually crazy. What the hell? I didn't know that for sure, but yeah, this nerf feels absolutely terrible. I hope they revert it. Now, in addition to all of these kit nerfs that Singe received within the last year, what else has changed for Singed? Well, he received many indirect item nerfs. Liandry's got nerfed. Deadman's Plate got nerfed. Boots of Swiftness got nerfed. Rylai's actually did get nerfed as well. People forget about this one, but I will go into that at the end. So, Liandry's. What happened to Liandry's? Liandry's ability power, patch 25.10, 15.10, was reduced from 70 down to 60. Alright, why is this a big deal? The reason why this is well, actually before that, they also made it have Faded Ashes, which I can go into why Faded Ashes was a big fucking mistake as well, but I'll do that probably right before I talk about Leandry. So minus 10 AP does not sound like a lot. And for most champions, it is not a lot. As you can tell, most mages' win rates did not go down, but Singed is AP Bruiser, and more importantly, he is a damage over time champion. So, one second. So Singed being a damage over time champion, every single tick of your poison trail gets impacted by the nerf to Leandry's, this 10 AP you lose, and the 5 AP you lose on your ultimate, right? So we have a net total of minus 15 AP loss at every stage of the game. As soon as you complete your first item, which absolutely sucks. There is no item in the game which gives you a comparable power spike to Leandry's for the cost. It does not exist. It is his absolute strongest power spike in terms of damage and wave clear. So this is Singe's only true core item, and it got nerfed by 10 AP for a net total of minus 15 considering the ultimate. And it feels really, really terrible because over the course of a long fight, you just lose so much damage. People survive constantly with 100, 200 HP. A lot of the time, it actually feels like you're not even moving anybody's health bars at all, which feels terrible. In case you guys didn't know, by the way, way back in Season 10, from Season 8 until Season 10, Leandry's actually had 10%, right here, 10% damage amplification. Now Leandry's only has 6% damage amplification. It also used to increase that damage when the target was CC'd. They removed that, which I think was a very awesome mechanic. I don't know why they didn't bring it back. But yeah, only 10% damage amplification to 6% now, and 60 AP. Well, this item, I believe, used to have, was it 80 or 90? Yeah, it used to have 90 AP, right, in 14.1, and then minus 20 AP in 14.19, and another 10 AP in 2510. So we've actually lost 35 ability power. Wait, no. Yeah, 35 ability power since this item was reintroduced on this item, which is just absolutely insane. The amount of damage lost on this item feels terrible, especially as Singe's only true core item. It feels like absolute trash. Dead Man's Plate. Dead Man's Plate is Singe's, was Singe's arguably best armor item because this, obviously the stats are great on him. Armor, health, movement speed, amazing combination of stats. You get the momentum passive, which gives you more movement speed, as well as some physical damage, which Singe lacks. So having this item, it's just really good on Singed. Makes him fast, slippery, a little bit tankier, feels great. However, it feels a lot less great now because in 25.08, the slow resistance was nerfed from 25% to 15%. And I know what you're going to say, it does not sound like a lot, but when you combine it with the swiftness boots nerf as well, yeah, this item starts to feel a lot less good. So that's 2 indirect item nerfs, but there's a lot more coming up, as you will see. But having this really sucks because Singed already has a lack of mobility versus slows and other crowd control. We no longer have Predator Boots. We no longer have Righteous Glory. We no longer have Turbo Chem Tank. There is Rocket Belt, but even Rocket Belt, Singe is not like... He doesn't love that item in my opinion, because even if you have Conqueror and does give you Conqueror stacks, he doesn't have the gap close that you normally pair with Rocket Belt with other Rocket Belt champions that would make it a lot better. Like when you think about like Fizz or LeBlanc, like these champions do have decent gap close after the fact to have a much larger lethal engage range than Singed does. And even then, like if you can find it with Singed, would you rather have Rocket Belt, or would you rather have spent that money on Leandry's, or would you rather have spent that money on Rylai's? Like there's a lot of... It's not as good for Singed to have the item, so he tends to prefer things like Dead Man's Plate over that. But yeah, moving on. Boots of Swiftness. This item also got nerfed. It actually got nerfed several times. So 14.15, they increased the cost of the item by 100, and then in 25.09, they reduced the movement speed by 5, so from 60 to 55. And again, I know what you're going to say, this does not sound like a big deal, Minish Cap 5 movement speed, but you have to remember, not only did we lose 5 movement speed on the boots, we lost 5 movement speed on the ultimate as well. So a net total of minus 10 movement speed that really, really adds up. You feel significantly slower now at all stages of the game with Boots of Swiftness. But the problem is that the other defensive boots were also nerfed. Offensive boots like Sorcery Shoes were also nerfed. So Singed being a champion with no gap closers, boots are a very, very important purchase for you. The defensive boots were nerfed, the offensive boots were nerfed, Swiftness boots were nerfed as well, and these were his favorite boots, so it just feels really, really bad, in my opinion, to be 10 movement speed slower at all points of the game. Really sucks. Not to mention that movement speed in and of itself is more expensive as well. Alright, so before I talk about Rivalize, I'll talk about Blackfire Torch. This item being added to the game was an absolute disaster for Singed, in my opinion. The pure existence of Blackfire Torch means that Liandry's can never truly shine as a damage over time item, because these two items, Liandry's and Blackfire Torch, take up a similar space in the item system. Right, so Blackfire Torch is meant more for mages and control mages like distance casters. It's meant for more for champions like Brand, like Brand, Syndra, Orianna, like these more distance-based casters, to not only amplify their AP with this Blackfire passive, but also to deal a damage over time effect. The problem is that Liandry's has to be balanced with the existence of Blackfire Torch in mind, because these champions will all pair the two items together for a double burn effect, to have a bunch of item damage come out at all times. Singed cannot purchase Blackfire Torch, because guess what? Well, you can, but it's not as good as those other champions, because guess what? You're spending money on 600 mana and no health, which is hard for a champion, again, with no gap closers, who is not only melee range, but Singed is also negative range, because you have to have your target behind you in order to actually deal damage to them, right? So not only is he melee, he's negative melee range, which really sucks whenever you buy an item that doesn't give you HP. That item has to be really, really, really fucking good. It has to be like a Zonya's or a Deathcap, which gives you effects that are so powerful that you can sometimes ignore the fact that the item you're buying does not give you health. However, Blackfire Torch is not that. And this item, you have to balance Liandry's with it, with the existence of Blackfire in mind. So Liandry's can never truly shine. The amount of nerfs that Liandry's has gotten since Blackfire was introduced is absolutely criminal, in my opinion. I wish that they had never introduced it, but they wanted to give normal mages access to a burn item, which, I mean, I think that's kind of stupid in general, because Brand and other dot mages always did build Liandry's. Like, even Teemo built Liandry's, Cassio built Liandry's, right? But to give them an item that does less burn damage but still gives a burn and amps their AP is just like, okay, what about the AP bruisers that like Liandry's, like Singed, Mordekaiser, Udyr, things like this? Well, they all got pretty fucked by Blackfire Torch's introduction, so feels very bad. They actually compensation buffed Udyr and Mordekaiser, but not Singed yet, unfortunately. Okay, moving on. Rivalize, this one is a little bit smaller. They actually nerfed this item from 75 to 65 AP in patch 14.19. You never really bought this item for the damage. This is part of the sweeping item updates where all the items got nerfed, but it still adds up to the state that we are in today. Losing 10 AP on Rivalize matters a lot less, but it's still a 10 AP loss, which adds up to the total amount of AP that we've lost today in all of our items, which is quite a bit again. That being said, Singed's win rates not looking great. Emerald plus 49.5, Diamond plus 49.8, Diamond 2 plus 48.9. Oof. Master plus 50.4, but again, this is just like, this could be like such a small sample size, just like 2 or 3 wins or losses in either direction would skew this stat so hard because the sample size is so small. But the bigger thing is, like, his win rate is suffering pretty hard in most elos. Just does not feel great, in my opinion, right now. I think that what are my closing thoughts here? I feel like Riot could really benefit from thinking more long term about what champions are being affected by the buffs and nerfs that they dish out to items. I do not think that the Poison Trail change for minion execution in and of itself is a bad idea. I think that there is a world where the Poison Trail execution update can be seen as a good thing, but the problem is, I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here. The problem is that Riot needs to be able to actually maintain and keep tabs on a champion which has, and I'm quoting here from Riot Endstep, the most powerful minion execution that they've ever put in the game, right? It is the most blatantly powerful minion execution they have ever put in the game, is what Endstep said. For a champion like that to get an update like that, they really, really, really need to keep tabs on it and keep it updated and make sure that the update is performing the way that they want it to, and that the champion as a whole is performing the way that he should be. But Singed right now absolutely is not. Do I think that Singed is unplayably bad? No. Do I think that Singed is currently rewarding to play for players who have put a lot of hours in Unsinged? Hell no. He is very under rewarding right now in my opinion, and this is a problem that could have just been avoided if Riot was paying attention to the champion. I have tried to be in contact with the balance team as a whole about the state of Singed, but just hearing crickets currently, so it feels bad. Hopefully now that Singed's win rate is finally negative, they will look into him and maybe we'll get a buff. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I guess my conclusion overall is that I do not think that Riot has initially they did hit their goals, but then they ended up missing them. And I think that they probably should have maintained the champion better. So I guess for the purpose of the video, no, they did not hit their goals, unfortunately, with the Poison Trail update. And I hope that things change soon. I'm sorry if this video sounds a little doomery. Singed is not unplayably bad. Again, for most players, he's probably, well, actually no, because for most players, he's actually statistically not okay right now. So he's actually not, but I think he will be okay if Riot is gonna finally look at him and give him Singed a little bit of love. But for now, yeah, not looking too great. So we'll see how it goes, though. I guess I could sit here and show you guys a bunch of clips about how many times that enemy champions have survived on 1 HP since these updates, but I'm not going to. It would be a huge waste of time, and you already know my thoughts on the whole idea. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Singed spreadsheet will be out soon. Assuming that Singed does get buffed, I hope he gets buffed. If he does, those updates will be included in the spreadsheet as well. I'm almost done with it, so I will also be doing my coaching giveaway video soon. So that being said, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. I'll catch you next one. Mwah. Peace, guys.